now recognize for 5 minutes the distinguished gentleman and former Secretary of the Interior, the gentleman from Montana, Mr. Zinke, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just a couple comments as we go through. I would think that if you use the services, you ought to pay the freight. Whether it's mandated or not, there might be more efficient. Let those guys, figure it out. But if they use the services, certainly I think they should pay the freight. I think that's fair. Mr. Ambassador, looking through and listening to your testimony, I'm interested when you say enhanced authority. That seems to be a theme throughout. No doubt individuals with traveling around. As my experience as a commander, I think that everyone works for somebody. So to give carte blanche, I think probably the ambassador or the RSO is probably the guy that would approve such things. But explain to me when you say enhanced authority. What do you mean by that?
Thank you, Mr. Zinke. Since our ambassadors serve as representatives of the President of the United States around the world, and they are charged by the President in these, what we call the Chief of Mission letters, by every President in every administration that give the ambassador the instruction, you are in charge of all U.S. official government activities in your country of assignment, and you have all these responsibilities and accountability for their safety and for the performance of their duties. I have found that over the years, in my experience and also my experience as ambassador, that more and more there has been this effort to have to refer back to Washington for permission to go ahead and do your job. That has been very clearly outlined for you already by the President and the President's letter and the Secretary of State.
And to your point, we're talking about regionalization, right? In my experience, you have to be very, very careful when you regionalize. Because you oftentimes, rather than you regionalize a service, you regionalize authority. And that line is problem because it does create a bureaucracy. So when you say authority, do you have specific authorities? Do you think that we can push the State Department to give to the ambassadors?
I think we should go ahead and let the ambassadors perform the function that the President and through the Secretary of State from the President have been given to the ambassador in very clear format, and not ask for our chiefs of mission to have to refer back to Washington for the functions which have already been authorized, and to make sure that they have the authority to not only perform their mission, but also to be the risk managers and the risk absorbers for our functions abroad. The example I'd like to give you is, you know that many of our embassies nowadays are very heavily secured and fortified to make sure that our staff stays safe. That's a smart and prudent idea. At the same time, you can't do diplomacy from behind a fortified wall. You have to come out and meet the people, to go ahead and engage with the host country, to go ahead and take a certain amount of prudent risk in performance of your duty. Our ambassadors need to be authorized to go ahead and absorb that risk prudently, to hold themselves accountable for taking those risks, but to go ahead and get their staffs to be able to accomplish their mission, and not to be so risk averse that we can't get the job done.
In your experience, do you find it frustrating on our procurement process? It seems you have the operator that knows what he wants, the vendor who basically knows how to manufacture it, but we put a third entity called the contracting officer in charge. Is there frustration in the State Department, like there is with the Department of Defense, on timeliness of procurement?
Sure, certainly there is. Let me be honest. Of course there is. At the same time, we realize that everybody cannot be his or her own procurement officer. You have to have a process that is fair, that is clearly delineated, and that is accountable to the money being wisely spent. At the same time, you know that sometimes it takes much too long to procure things. Often we work on budgets where there are restrictions all the way through to the end of the fiscal year, and suddenly at the end of the fiscal year you said, my God, you better go out there and buy some refrigerators and some various other things, because very quickly the money needs to be spent. It would be better if we had a more logical and more predictable procurement process throughout the entire fiscal year.
You seem very articulate for a Sun Devil. I played for the Ducks, just for the matter of record.
Do the best I can.
And let me ask you that: if this committee, if you could say, we're going to focus on one thing, to fix one thing within the span and the authority of this committee, what would you pick?
The one I already picked, sir, and that is the one is I really think you should give serious consideration for creating this diplomatic reserve corps. Create that body of surge capacity for the United States, not just for the State Department, for the United States, to meet overseas contingencies on a diplomatic basis that we currently do not have. With the State Department positions already being vastly understaffed by current projections of about 13% of positions around the world not being filled, in order for us to go ahead and meet emergencies, it becomes a really dire situation to be able to meet those.
Thank you, and thank you both for your service. Mr. Chairman, I yield.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.